In the heart of the crystalline city of Zentra, where towers of shimmering amethyst and liquid silver spiraled into the violet sky, nestled the royal palace of the Varelians. A grand fortress floating above the clouds on anti-gravity platforms, its spires crowned with pulsating orbs of blue light that hummed ancient lullabies to the stars. The palace was a world of perfection. Polished floors that reflected the double moons, corridors lined with singing statues, and gardens where flowers bloomed in slow motion, releasing tiny bursts of color with every petal unfurling. Here lived Princess Lyra, daughter of Queen Zorvana the Stern, the last heir of the Varelian bloodline. A race of tall, elegant beings with smooth green skin, hair like cascading emerald vines, and eyes that glowed faintly gold when emotions ran high. Lyra was not like the others. While her people prized logic, tradition, and the purity of their ancient lineage, she dreamed of stars beyond their system, of love that didn't need permission, and of a world where differences weren't crimes. For months, Lyra had been hiding a secret deeper than the palace vaults. Her heart belonged to a human named Theo, a name so simple, so earthly, it felt like a whisper from another universe. Theo had crash-landed on Varelia during a rogue meteor storm, his tiny exploration pod tumbling through the atmosphere like a lost firefly. Found unconscious in a field of singing moss, he should have been taken to the Interspecies Containment Center, labeled Unknown Organic, and studied until his last breath. But Lyra had been there. She'd seen the way his chest rose and fell, the way his dark, curly hair clung to his forehead, the faint freckles scattered across his nose like stardust. And when he opened his brown eyes, warm, confused, but kind, something inside her cracked open like a forbidden seed. She smuggled him into the palace not with grand plans, but with panic and instinct. Dressed in a servant's shimmering gray tunic, his human scent masked with Varelian lavender oil, Theo was hidden in the least expected place. The palace's automated waste disposal chamber, a labyrinth of moving bins and recycling tubes beneath the east wing. It wasn't glamorous. It smelled faintly of decomposing moon lichen and burnt metal. But it was safe until it wasn't. Lyra visited him every night, slipping through secret passages known only to royal children, bringing him food, books, and stories of Earth. Places with oceans, snow, and dogs that barked at squirrels. In return, Theo taught her slang, how to whistle with 2 fingers, and the art of making shadow puppets with a single flashlight. They laughed in hushed tones, their fingers brushing, their hearts sinking like 2 planets pulled into the same orbit. Their love bloomed in stolen moments. A touch behind a curtain, a note passed through a ventilation shaft, a kiss hidden in the echo chamber where sound lasted 7 seconds longer than anywhere else. Lyra, who had once recited royal decrees with robotic precision, now giggled like a schoolgirl when Theo mimicked her mother's voice. "Theo," she'd whisper, "if Mother finds out, you'll be vaporized. Or worse, sent back to Earth in a cardboard box labeled, 'Do not open. Emotional hazard.'" He'd grin, his human teeth too white against his tan skin, and say, "Then I'll just have to teach her to like me." Lyra would roll her eyes, but her heart would flutter. He was reckless. He was kind. He was everything her world wasn't. But secrets in palaces have weight. They press on walls, hum in the air, and eventually they scream. The first sign came when the palace AI, a floating orb named Glip, started glitching near the waste chamber. Anomaly detected. It would chirp in its cheerful tone. Organic presence in Sector D7, possibly a rogue fungus, or a very lost space raccoon. Lyra reset it every time, feeding it false data and bribing it with extra charging cycles. But Glip was persistent. Then came the servants, whispering about strange footprints near the lower vents, about a faint smell of something warm and meaty in the recycling ducts. Lyra dismissed them. "Earthlings have a unique aroma," she said dryly. "It's called not being a plant-based life form." The real trouble began the night of the lunar convergence, a sacred ceremony where the queen communed with the twin moons to renew the planet's energy fields. Lyra was supposed to stand beside her mother, glowing staff in hand, chanting the ancient hymns. But instead, she was in the waste chamber, helping Theo adjust a jury-rigged communicator cobbled together from broken drones and a toaster. "If I can boost the signal," he said, his fingers smudged with grease, "I might be able to call my ship. They'll send a rescue pod. We can leave together." Lyra's heart pounded. Leaving meant abandoning her world, her title, her people. But staying meant losing him. "I'll go with you," she said softly, "even if it means living in a cave on a planet with gravity that makes my knees hurt." Just then, the chamber door hissed open. Not from below, but from above, a maintenance hatch. And there, framed in the dim light, stood Queen Zervana. Her green hair coiled like a crown of serpents, her golden eyes blazing with fury. She had followed Glip's final alert. She had seen the footprints. And now, she saw him, Theo, half-crouched behind a bin labeled organic scraps. His face pale, his hands raised like a man caught stealing cookies from a god's pantry. Silence fell like a guillotine. "Mother?" Lyra said, stepping forward, her voice trembling but clear. "This is Theo. He's not a threat. He's the one I love." The queen didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply stared, her expression unreadable, as if her mind were recalculating the entire universe. Then, with a flick of her wrist, 6 royal guards, tall, silent figures in silver armor, descended from the hatch, their energy staves humming to life. Theo was seized, his arms pinned behind his back. Lyra lunged forward, but a force field snapped into place, trapping her behind a shimmering blue wall. "You have broken the law of genetic purity," the queen said, her voice colder than the void between stars. "You have harbored an alien contaminant. You have dishonored your bloodline." "He's not a contaminant," Lyra shouted, pounding on the barrier. "He's a person. He's kind. He makes me feel things I never knew existed." "Feelings are weaknesses," the queen replied, "and weaknesses destroy empires." Theo, still struggling in the guard's grip, managed a weak smile. "Hey, Your Highness," he said, his voice cracking. "I don't mean to interrupt your royal freakout, but I kinda love your daughter too, and I think that's worth something." The queen turned to him, her eyes narrowing. "You are less than dust. You are a biological error. You will be erased." "No!" Lyra screamed. "If you erase him, you erase me too." The guards dragged Theo away through a hidden lift, his voice fading into the depths of the palace. Lyra collapsed against the force field, tears, bright silver, like liquid mercury, streaming down her face. The queen watched her for a long moment, then deactivated the barrier. "You will return to your chambers," she said. "You will meditate, you will purify your mind, and you will forget this creature." But Lyra didn't forget. She burned. That night, alone in her chamber, a room filled with floating books and a bed that hovered 3 feet above the ground. She made a decision. She wouldn't beg. She wouldn't plead. She would fight. She accessed the royal archives, searching for loopholes, forgotten laws, anything that could protect Theo. She discovered that centuries ago, a Varelian prince had married a being from the Nebula of Whispers, a creature made of light and sound. The union had been controversial, but not illegal, because the prince had invoked the clause of cosmic kinship, an ancient rule stating that love recognized across species could not be forbidden if proven genuine. The problem? The clause had been buried under bureaucracy, deemed outdated by the royal council. But it still existed. Lyra also knew the queen's weakness, tradition. Zervana would never break a law, even a forgotten one. If Lyra could prove her love was real, if she could invoke the clause in a public ceremony, the queen would have no choice but to accept it, or risk appearing unjust in the eyes of the people. But first she had to save Theo. She waited until the 3rd night, when the twin moons aligned and the palace's energy fields dimmed for maintenance. Slipping into the uniform of a junior technician, she disabled the surveillance drones with a stolen access chip and made her way to the detention spire, a narrow tower where political prisoners and rogue robots were held. The place was cold, lit by flickering red lights, and smelled of ozone and regret. Theo was in cell 13, suspended in a gravity bubble, floating like a fish in a bowl. His face lit up when he saw her. "You came," he whispered. "Of course I came," she said, working the lock with a device made from Glip's spare parts. "Did you think I'd let them turn you into space compost?" "I hoped," he said, "but I also packed a mental goodbye speech." The lock clicked. The bubble dissolved. Theo dropped to the floor with a soft thud. Lyra helped him up, their hands clasped. "We're not done," she said. "We're going to fight. Publicly. Legally. And if that fails, we run." They escaped through the ventilation system, crawling through narrow tunnels, dodging security bots, and once, hiding inside a moving bin full of used ceremonial robes, which smelled, according to Theo, like a wizard's armpit. They reached the grand hall just as the morning sun painted the sky in streaks of pink and gold. The hall was empty, its vast floor made of reflective crystal, its ceiling a dome showing the live feed of the galaxy. Lyra climbed onto the central dais, where royal proclamations were made, and activated the global broadcast system. Her voice echoed across Varelia, reaching every home, every ship, every listening device in the system. "People of Zentra," she began, "I stand before you not as a princess, but as a being who has found love beyond the stars. This is Theo, a human from Earth. He is not a contaminant. He is not a threat. He is my heart. And I invoke the clause of cosmic kinship, last used 300 cycles ago, to declare our bond lawful and sacred." Theo, still dusty and disheveled, stepped beside her, holding her hand. "Hi," he said to the galaxy. "I know I'm not green. I don't glow. I can't levitate books with my mind. But I love Lyra, and I think love should be bigger than rules." The reaction was instant. News drones swarmed the hall. Citizens gasped. Some cheered. Others scowled. The Royal Council convened in emergency session, and Queen Zervana arrived within minutes, her face a storm of pride and pain. "You dare use an ancient loophole to defy me?" she thundered. "I dare," Lyra said. "Because love is not defiance. It is truth." The council debated for hours. Traditionalists argued that allowing a human into the royal bloodline would weaken the Varelian race. Scientists pointed out that cross-species DNA studies showed no degradation. Young Varelians, inspired by Lyra's courage, took to the streets with signs that read, "Love has no species," and "Let her glow with love." Even Glip, the AI, submitted a formal statement. "After analyzing 10,000 hours of hidden camera footage, I conclude that Princess Lyra smiles 37% more when Theo is present. This data suggests emotional optimization. I vote yes." Finally, the council agreed. The clause of cosmic kinship would be honored, but with conditions. Theo would undergo a trial of worthiness. 3 challenges to prove he was worthy of royal love. If he failed, he would be exiled. If he succeeded, he would be accepted, not as a prince, but as a partner of the heart. A new title created just for him. The first trial was the Maze of Echoes, a shifting labyrinth where walls moved and voices from the past whispered doubts. "You don't belong here," hissed a recording of Queen Zervana. "She will forget you. All humans are temporary." Theo pressed on, guided by Lyra's voice in his earpiece, repeating, "I am here. I am real. I am loved." He found the center in under an hour. The second trial was the Arena of Elements, where he faced simulations of Earth's dangers. A hurricane, a lava flow, a swarm of robotic bees, which, he later claimed, were way scarier than they sound. Using his knowledge of physics and a calm mind, he survived each, even saving a holographic child from a collapsing building. The third trial was the hardest, a public debate with the Queen herself. Before the entire council and a live audience, Theo had to argue why love between species should be allowed. He didn't use big words. He didn't cite laws. He told stories, of holding Lyra's hand during a meteor shower, of teaching her to dance to Earth music, of how she once cried when he described the smell of rain on grass. "Love isn't about matching DNA," he said. "It's about matching hearts. And mine beats for her." Silence followed. Then, slowly, Queen Zervana stood. Her golden eyes dimmed, softened. "You are not what I expected," she admitted. "You are flawed, emotional, illogical, and yet you speak truth." She turned to the council. "I accept the verdict. Theo of Earth shall be recognized as partner of the heart to Princess Lyra." The palace erupted in cheers. Some still grumbled, but change had begun. Lyra and Theo stood together, hand in hand, as the sun rose over Zentra. That night, they danced in the garden of slow-blooming flowers, Theo spinning Lyra under the twin moons, both of them laughing as the flowers burst into color around them. Glip floated nearby, playing Earth music at low volume. "You did good, human," it said. "I've updated your file. Not fungus. Possibly hero. But peace never lasts long in royal families. Because while the Queen had accepted Theo, others had not." High Counselor Vrax, a cold-eyed noble who had once hoped to marry Lyra himself, watched from the shadows, his fingers tightening around a data chip labeled Project Purge. And far above the planet, a dark ship, unregistered, unmarked, drifted into orbit, its weapons charging, its mission clear: eliminate the human contaminant before the bloodline was tainted forever. Lyra and Theo knew danger wasn't over. But for now, they held each other, two beings from different worlds, their love a spark in the vast dark. and as the stars blinked above them, it almost seemed like the universe was rooting for them. Almost. The celebration that followed Theo's acceptance was unlike anything Zentra had seen in centuries. The palace gardens, usually reserved for solemn ceremonies and silent meditation, erupted in color and sound. Bioluminescent vines pulsed in rhythm with earth music, Theo's favorite, a genre called rock, which involved loud noises and people jumping. Varelians, who typically moved with glacial grace, awkwardly attempted to headbang, resulting in several minor neck injuries and one royal advisor fainting from emotional overload. Lyra and Theo danced beneath a sky now dotted with fireworks, illegal on Varelia until Theo bribed a junior technician with a packet of peanut butter, a substance so rich, it was classified as a luxury narcotic. But beneath the joy, shadows stirred. High Counselor Vrax, a tall, gaunt Varelian with eyes like frozen mercury, had spent the night not celebrating, but plotting. From his private chamber, hidden behind a wall of singing crystals, he accessed a forbidden network known as the Silent Choir, a secret alliance of traditionalists who believed the Varelian race must remain pure, untouched by lesser species. On a flickering hologram, masked figures from across the galaxy convened. The human remains, Vrax hissed, and the princess grows bolder. If we do not act, the royal bloodline will dissolve into chaos. We cannot strike openly, whispered a figure from the ice moon of Kryn. The people support them. The queen has given her word. Then we strike in silence, Vrax replied, his voice like rusted metal. We make the human disappear, and we make it look like an accident. Meanwhile, Lyra and Theo, unaware of the conspiracy, enjoyed their first official day as a recognized couple. They toured the city in an open-air hover carriage, waving to crowds. Children threw glowing petals. Elders nodded in cautious approval. One old Varelian even muttered, "He does have nice eyes," which, on Zentra, was basically a marriage proposal. But as they passed the Grand Archive Tower, Theo suddenly froze. "Wait," he said, squinting at a reflection in the glass. "Did that guard just take a picture of us?" Lyra followed his gaze. A palace sentry stood too still, his hand near his earpiece. "That's not a guard," she whispered. "That's a spy. One of Vrax's moles." They returned to the palace cautiously, but found no immediate threat. That night, as they lay on Lyra's floating balcony watching the twin moons, Theo admitted, "I keep thinking, this is too easy, like the universe is just waiting to punch me in the face." Lyra laughed. "You humans and your doom thinking, maybe the universe is rewarding us." As if in response, the sky above them rippled. A dark shape, long, jagged, shaped like a blade, slid into orbit, invisible to most scanners. Only Glip noticed. "Alert!" it buzzed, floating into the room. Unidentified vessel detected. No signature, no origin, but it just fired a microprobe toward the palace. The probe arrived the next morning disguised as a gift. A harmony orb delivered to Lyra's chambers, said to enhance emotional balance. Theo, suspicious, scanned it with a handheld device he'd built from spare parts. "This thing's not for harmony," he said. "It's a neural disruptor. If activated, it could erase memories. Or worse, trigger a seizure." Lyra's blood ran cold. "Someone's trying to hurt you. Or me. Or both." They took the orb to Glip, who analyzed it and traced the signal to a relay in the lower palace tunnels. Tunnels that led directly to the old royal crypts, where the bodies of ancient Varelian rulers rested in stasis. The signal was routed through multiple nodes, Glip reported. But the final command came from Counselor Vrax's private chamber. Lyra's heart shattered. Vrax had been her father's closest advisor. He had held her as a child, and now he wanted her love erased. But before they could act, the palace alarms blared. The dark ship in orbit had launched an energy pulse, a silent, invisible wave that disabled all non-essential systems. Lights flickered, gravity plates wavered, and in the chaos, Vrax made his move. He stormed into the throne room with armed loyalists, declaring that the queen had been compromised by alien influence and that he was assuming temporary control under the Emergency Purity Act. A law so old, most thought it was a myth. Queen Zorvana, calm but furious, stood before him. "You forget your place, Vrax. I remember it perfectly," he sneered. "I am the one who will save our people from decay." In the confusion, Theo and Lyra were separated. Theo was captured trying to reach the communication hub, knocked unconscious by a stun baton. Lyra, using a secret passage known only to heirs, escaped to the roof, where she accessed a royal escape pod. a sleek, silver vessel shaped like a leaf. But she didn't flee. She sent a message to Glip. Get Theo to the pod. I'm going after the ship. Because she had realized something. The dark vessel wasn't just attacking. It was listening. It had waited for the right moment to strike. When emotions were high, when defenses were down. That meant it wasn't just a weapon. It was intelligent. And it was working with Vrax. While Glip, with the help of a network of rebellious service drones, sneaked Theo onto the roof and into the escape pod, Lyra did the unthinkable. She hijacked a Royal Starskimmer, a single pilot craft used for celestial observation, and launched into orbit, chasing the dark ship. The battle that followed was not one of lasers and explosions, but of wits and will. The enemy vessel dodged with unnatural precision, as if reading her thoughts. Then, through the comms, a voice, mechanical, cold, yet eerily familiar, spoke. Princess Lyra, you cannot win. The human is weak. Your love is a flaw in the code. Who are you? Lyra demanded, dodging a plasma net. I am the future. I am order. I am what your people will become when the weak are purged. And then she saw it. The ship wasn't just AI-controlled. It was alive, a biomechanical entity created by the Silent Choir, a fusion of Varelian technology and forbidden cybernetics, designed to eliminate impurities across the galaxy. And it had been sent not just to kill Theo but to test Lyra, to see if she would sacrifice her love for her duty. Back on the escape pod, Theo woke up, disoriented. Glip explained everything. She's out there alone, Theo whispered. I have to help her. But you're not a pilot, Glip said. No, Theo agreed. But I am a mechanic, and I know how to break things. Using tools from the pod's emergency kit, he rewired the navigation system, overrode the safety locks, and redirected the pod not to safety but straight toward the dark ship. Glip, he said, calculate a collision course. But at the last second, I need you to eject me. Eject you? Into space? That's illogical. Love isn't logical, Theo said with a grin. Do it. As Lyra dueled the dark ship, drawing it away from the planet, the escape pod came screaming out of the void, straight toward the enemy vessel. The ship turned to destroy it, but too late. At the last second, a small figure in a makeshift pressure suit was launched from the pod, spinning through the void like a shooting star. It was Theo. Using a magnetic grapple from the pod, he latched onto the dark ship's hull and crawled toward a weak point Lyra had once mentioned, a vent used for thermal regulation. Inside, he planted an electromagnetic pulse charge, the kind used to reset malfunctioning AI. This is for trying to erase us, he muttered, setting the timer. Above, Lyra saw the pod collide but not explode. Instead, it wrapped around the ship like a net, disrupting its sensors. She fired a precision beam into the engine core, not to destroy, but to destabilize. The ship shuddered, its movements becoming erratic. Then boom, the charge detonated. The dark ship convulsed, its systems flickering. The voice screamed, not in pain, but in confusion. Error, contradiction, love, cannot be erased. And then silence. The ship powered down, drifting lifelessly in orbit. Below, on Zentra, Vrax was arrested as the palace systems came back online. The Queen, restored to power, stood before the council and declared, Today, we learned that love is not weakness. It is the strongest force in the universe. And any who seek to destroy it are not protectors of purity, but enemies of progress. Theo, rescued by a recovery drone, returned to the palace weak but alive. Lyra ran to him, tears in her silver eyes. You could have died. Yeah, he said, brushing dust from her cheek. But then I'd miss your face, and your weird glowing hair, and the way you say, peanut butter, like it's a curse word. She laughed through her tears. You're ridiculous. And you love me for it. They did not return to quiet days, because as the galaxy learned of their story, something extraordinary happened. Other planets, species long divided by law, biology, or war, began to speak of them. A couple on the water world of Merowyn, one with scales, one with fur, invoked the clause of cosmic kinship. A robot and a poet on the desert moon of Trell sent a message. If love can cross species, can it not cross-form? And then came the signal. From the far edge of the galaxy, a transmission weak, ancient, but clear. It showed a human woman, her face lined with age, standing in a room filled with stars. To Theo, she said, her voice trembling. If you're hearing this, I'm your mother. I thought you were lost in the storm, but you're alive. and you've found love among the stars. I'm so proud of you." Theo collapsed to his knees, the message playing on a screen in Lyra's chambers. She held him as he wept, tears of joy, of grief, of a son who had crossed galaxies only to find he was never truly lost. But the transmission held one final secret. It ended with coordinates, not to Earth, to a hidden colony, human and alien, living together in peace, built in secret after a failed war. A place called Ellora, a sanctuary. "We could go," Lyra whispered, "not to leave Zentra, but to visit, to learn, to show them that love like ours is possible." Theo smiled, squeezing her hand. "Then let's build a ship, one that doesn't crash." They began plans at once. With Glip's help, Varelian engineers and human ingenuity combined to design a vessel unlike any other. A ship grown from living crystal and reinforced steel, powered by starlight and emotion. They called it the Heart of Zentra. But as construction began, a new signal arrived. This one was not a message. It was a warning, a deep, pulsing frequency detected by deep space monitors. It came from beyond the known universe, and it repeated one phrase over and over in every language. "They are coming." No one knew who they were. Some said ancient machines. Others whispered of a race that had banned love entirely, enforcing silence across the stars. But Lyra and Theo knew one thing. Their love had already changed the galaxy, and if darkness was coming, they would face it together, hand in hand, human and alien, heart to heart. As the first light of the triple dawn spilled across the amethyst domes of Zentra's royal palace, the entire planet held its breath. Not for war, not for crisis, but for a wedding. Not just any wedding. The union of Princess Lyra, heir to the Varelian throne, and Theo, the human from Earth who had once been hidden in a dustbin, now stood at the center of a galaxy-wide moment of hope. The ceremony was held in the Garden of Whispers, where flowers bloomed not with color, but with sound, each petal releasing a soft chime when touched by love. The air shimmered with floating lanterns shaped like stars, and the twin moons hung low, as if leaning in to listen. Queen Zorvana, dressed in robes of liquid silver, stood beside them, her golden eyes glistening, not with suspicion, but with pride. Even High Counselor Vrax, now stripped of power and serving a sentence of community service, cleaning space toilets on a lunar station, had sent a grudgingly polite message: "May your union be tolerable." Lyra wore a gown woven from starlight threads and ancient Varelian silk, its train flowing like a river of moonlight. Theo, in a custom suit that somehow managed to glow and have pockets, grinned from ear to ear. "I still can't believe I'm not being chased by robots right now," he whispered as they stood before the Unity Arch, a floating ring of crystal that pulsed with the rhythm of joined hearts. Glip hovered nearby, officiating. "By the laws of Zentra, the clause of cosmic kinship, and my own emotional algorithms," the AI declared in its cheerful tone, "I now pronounce you partner and princess. You may now do the lip-touching." The crowd erupted. Varelians, who rarely raised their voices, cheered so loudly the garden flowers chimed in harmony. Lyra and Theo kissed, softly at first, then with the kind of joy that only comes after surviving wars, conspiracies, and rogue spaceships. As their lips met, the stars above seemed to brighten, and somewhere in the cosmos, a single note rang out, a sound not heard in eons. The Song of Unity, a mythic frequency said to awaken when love triumphs over fear. They did not leave the palace that day. They stayed, dancing under the sky, Theo teaching the stiff-backed nobles how to rock out, while Lyra laughed so hard she floated 3 feet off the ground, a Varelian sign of extreme happiness. Glip played a mix of earth ballads and Varelian ambient hums, and even Queen Zorvana was spotted swaying to a slow dance, her expression softening like ice in spring. In the years that followed, peace did not just return to Zentra, it flourished. The Heart of Zentra, the ship Theo and Lyra had designed, launched successfully and made contact with the hidden colony of Ellora. What they found was beyond dreams. Humans and aliens living side by side, raising children of mixed heritage, building cities that blended technology and nature, where laughter echoed in 100 languages. Theo reunited with his mother, an elderly woman with kind eyes and the same mischievous grin as her son. She hugged Lyra tightly and said, "You took care of my boy. Now let me spoil your future babies." And what babies they were. Lyra and Theo didn't just have one child. They had many, a joyful, chaotic, miraculous blend of human and Varelian life. Their first, a daughter named Mira, had her mother's green skin and glowing eyes, but her father's wild curls and love of peanut butter, now a legal snack on Zentra. She also had the rare ability to laugh so hard she created small gravity waves, accidentally floating the royal breakfast table once during a particularly funny joke about space cows. Then came Kale, a boy with Theo's brown eyes and Lyra's graceful height, who could fix any machine by humming the right frequency. He built his first robot at age 5, a tiny one that brought people snacks and told dad jokes. Then twins, Zyn and L. Zyn could turn invisible when nervous, a trait that caused much panic during hide and seek. L, the quieter one, communicated with plants and once calmed an angry space vine that had attacked the palace greenhouse. They lived in the east wing of the palace, transformed into a warm, noisy home filled with earth books, Varelian meditation orbs, and a giant trampoline Theo insisted on installing for zero-gravity fun. Glip became the world's first AI nanny, monitoring the kids, settling arguments. No, Zyn, you cannot sell your sister to the moon traders. And occasionally playing lullabies that put even the queen to sleep. Queen Zorvana, once so rigid, became the galaxy's most doting grandmother. She taught the children royal etiquette, yes, but also how to use a gravity slingshot to launch water balloons and how to fake a royal decree to get extra dessert. Discipline, she would say, is important, but so is mischief. Never let anyone tell you otherwise. Theo never stopped being human. He missed pizza. He still couldn't levitate books with his mind. He snored, but he also learned to speak fluent Varelian, with a terrible accent, composed a symphony using only kitchen utensils, and became the galaxy's most beloved ambassador of love. Schools taught the story of the dustbin romance as a lesson in courage and compassion. Artists painted murals of Theo hiding in the bin, with the caption, "Love finds a way, even in trash." Lyra, now co-ruler of Zentra alongside her mother, reformed the royal laws, establishing the Interspecies Harmony Council, where beings from across the galaxy could live, learn, and love without fear. The old law of genetic purity was rewritten into the Charter of Cosmic Connection, which stated, "No heart shall be judged by the shape of its body, but by the depth of its love." Even the dark signal, "They are coming," faded into mystery. Some believed it was a glitch, others said it was a test, and by choosing love, Lyra and Theo had disarmed it. Glip ran endless simulations and concluded, "The only force strong enough to silence fear is a family that laughs together." As the decades passed, the children grew, each finding their own path. Mira became a diplomat traveling to war-torn systems to teach peace through music. Kale built a network of interstellar schools where robots and organic beings learned side by side. The twins opened a sanctuary for hybrid species, a place where no one had to hide. And Lyra and Theo? They grew older, their hair touched with silver and streaks of emerald green. They walked hand in hand through the same garden where they had married, now filled with grandchildren chasing glowing butterflies. On quiet nights, they sat on the balcony, watching the stars, Theo with a cup of Earth-style coffee, imported weekly, Lyra humming a lullaby from her childhood. "You ever think," Theo said one evening, "that we'd end up here? With all this life?" Lyra smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. "I dreamed of it, but I never dared believe it." He kissed her temple. "Best thing I ever did was crash land on your planet. And the best thing I ever did," she whispered, "was not turning you in." They laughed, the sound blending with the chimes of the garden, the hum of the stars, the distant giggle of a grandchild discovering she could float. Peace had not come easily. It had been fought for, defended, and built, one act of love at a time. But now, at last, it was real, deep, unshakable. And as the twin moons rose over Zentra, casting their gentle light on the palace, the garden, the family, the galaxy itself seemed to sigh, not in sorrow, but in joy. For love, against all odds, had won. And they lived, not just happily, but fully, surrounded by laughter, legacy, and the endless, shining promise of tomorrow.